My name is Maline Kensington, though the art world knows me only as MK, the elusive painter whose work commands millions at auction. But to my family, I'm just Maddie, the failure who wasted her potential on finger painting. Tonight, I stood in my private studio, surrounded by canvases worth more than the Kensington estate, watching the final strokes of my latest piece dry. It would debut tonight as the centerpiece of an exclusive gallery opening. The irony was almost poetic. My family, the very people who mocked my hobby, had spent millions collecting my work, never realizing who they were buying from. Another finger painting, Maddie? That was Olivia's snide remark at our last family dinner. She didn't know the piece she had just bid $2.3 million on at Christie's bore the same signature. My journey here began 15 years ago, when I walked away from the family's investment firm. The Kensingtons had built their empire over 3 generations of financial dominance. We made money, not art, so when I announced I was leaving to become a painter, the backlash was immediate. "You're throwing your life away," my father had thundered, face crimson. "No daughter of mine will be a starving artist." My mother, ever the society woman, fretted more about appearances. "What will we tell our friends, that our daughters become a nobody?" But it was Marcus, my older brother, who delivered the cruelest blow. "You have no talent, Maddie, you'll fail, and you'll come crawling back." They cut me off completely. No money, no connections, not even my trust fund. I was erased from family photos, excluded from events, whispered about as the family's shame. Only my grandmother had believed in me, sending quiet encouragement and small checks until she passed. I moved into a cramped Brooklyn studio, lived off odd jobs, and poured every spare minute into painting. My work evolved, dark, emotional pieces born of pain, defiance, and quiet resilience. I signed them simply MK, determined to rise on merit, not the Kensington name. Then came Elena Martinez, one of New York's most respected gallery owners. She saw something in my work others had missed. "Your pain bleeds through the canvas," she said. "It's beautiful, and terrible. People will pay a fortune for that kind of truth." She was right. Within 2 years, MK became the art world's most fascinating enigma. Paintings sold for staggering prices, always cloaked in mystery. Was MK a European recluse, a spiritual hermit, a collective? No one knew. Meanwhile, my family, oblivious, became some of my most enthusiastic collectors. They didn't buy for love of art, they bought for status. MK was the ultimate symbol of cultural cachet. I watched, amused, as Elena brokered deal after deal. My father especially took pride in his exclusive collection. "Elena," he once bragged, "I now own the largest private set of MK originals in the country." She'd smiled, and later told me, "He just paid $4.8 million for Shadows of Betrayal, inspired by the day he disowned you." Tonight's gallery opening was different. It would be my first public appearance as MK, my identity still hidden behind the ornate mask Elena had designed to feed the myth. But the event was being held at the newly opened Kensington Foundation Art Wing, funded by the family's own MK collection. They had spent weeks hyping it as the social event of the year, promising an exclusive showcase of the most significant MK works. What they didn't know was that every painting they'd ever bought had been signed twice, once as MK, and once with my full name, Maline Kensington, in specialized ink. Under normal lighting, it was invisible, but the custom lighting system installed for tonight's grand reveal, that would change everything. At exactly 9 p.m., when the lights shifted for the unveiling of my newest piece, every MK painting on display would simultaneously reveal its true author. Their prized collection, the one they flaunted to prove their superiority, would expose the daughter they cast aside. My phone buzzed. "Elena, everything's ready. Your family just confirmed. Are you sure about this?" I stared at my reflection in the studio window, remembering the years of ridicule and rejection, the shame they made me feel. Then I thought about the $50 million they'd poured into the work of the daughter they said would never succeed. Me, yes, it's time they knew who I am. The Kensington Foundation shimmered in the dusk, glass walls catching the last light of day. I arrived early, slipping in through a private entrance Elena had arranged. The mask I wore was a masterpiece in itself, delicate black lace threaded with silver, obscuring my face while allowing me to blend in among New York's elite. Let them admire their collection one last time, before the truth brings their house of lies crashing down. From my hidden vantage point, I watched as New York's elite filed into the venue. their laughter and chatter a stark contrast to the knot of anticipation in my stomach. Dressed in designer gowns and dripping with jewels, they were eager to be part of this historic evening, though they had no idea how their world was about to unravel. Then I saw them, my family, the Kensingtons. My father, Harrison Kensington, exuded that signature air of authority in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. Beside him, my mother Evelyn gleamed in a gown that likely cost more than my first apartment. Marcus and Olivia followed, the same smug superiority radiating from them as it always had. "The Kensingtons have arrived," Elena whispered beside me. "Your father's already bragging about hand-picking each MK piece for maximum investment potential." I could hear my father now, already leading a small group of admirers toward Echoes of Silence. One of my earliest works, the dark, swirling canvas, was born from the depths of my isolation during the months after they'd cut me off. "Notice the complexity of emotion," he said, gesturing grandly, his voice carrying through the crowd. "MK's mastery of shadow and light here is unparalleled. I acquired this piece for a mere $800,000 3 years ago. It's now valued at $3.2 million. Olivia, champagne flute in hand, joined in with a wicked laugh. "Daddy's got an eye for talent," she said, the words dripping with malice. He knew MK would become a force in the art world, unlike some people we know. She glanced over her shoulder, the cruel joke aimed at me. "Remember Maddie's little paintings? Those childish splashes of color?" My mother touched her pearl necklace, a nervous tick I hadn't seen in years. "Evelyn, darling, must we rehash that unfortunate chapter? Tonight is about celebrating real art." Elena squeezed my arm, her whisper breaking through the tension. "Are you ready?" I nodded, though my heart raced. The lighting had been set exactly to my specifications, the specialized ink on every painting, my real signature, Maline Kensington, would soon be revealed. Under the perfect UV conditions, the room's temperature had been calibrated to ensure the effect would be flawless. At precisely 8:45, Elena stepped forward to address the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this historic exhibition of MK's work. In 15 minutes, we'll unveil MK's latest masterpiece, along with a surprise that will make this evening unforgettable." The crowd buzzed with anticipation. My father took center stage, positioning himself as the authority on MK's brilliance, as if the night were an extension of his own wealth and taste. Marcus, already filming on his phone, no doubt preparing to brag about the exclusive event to his social media followers. I moved silently through the throngs, eavesdropping on whispers of speculation. Art critics debated my techniques, collectors boasted about their MK acquisitions. The speculation about my identity had become a game in itself. "I heard MK is a British aristocrat." "No, it's a collective of Korean artists. I'm sure of it." "Well, I was told MK is a former monk who only paints during full moons." At 8:55, the regular lights dimmed, the first signs of the transformation. My father took the opportunity to announce his dominance. As the owner of the largest private collection of MK originals in the world, he declared proudly, "I can assure you that these works represent the pinnacle of contemporary art. Each piece here was personally selected by me for its uniqueness." The lights dropped to black, cutting off his speech mid-sentence. A soft, violet glow began to pulse through the room. And then, it happened. One by one, the hidden signatures began to appear on every canvas. The ink I'd used years ago reacted to the UV light, revealing my full name, Maline Kensington, flowing across each piece like an accusation. A collective gasp echoed through the room. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Olivia's jaw dropped as she stared at the glowing name. What is this?" my father stammered, his face draining of color as he realized what was unfolding before him. That was my cue. I stepped forward, moving silently to the small platform where my latest piece lay hidden under a velvet cloth. With a swift motion, I pulled it away, revealing both the artwork and my identity in one fluid motion. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice calm but cutting through the stunned silence. "I'm Maline Kensington. You might know me better as MK." Chaos erupted around me. Phones were pulled from pockets. Flashbulbs popped like gunshots. The crowd surged forward, desperate to capture the moment. Art critics, who had fawned over my work, now pushed their way closer. Collectors, whose fortunes had been made with my paintings, suddenly realized the value of their pieces had just multiplied. But my gaze remained fixed on my family. My father, whose face had gone from crimson to ghostly white, was staring at the paintings in horror, His hands trembled as he took in the revelation. The collection he'd once paraded as his status symbol now exposed him as the architect of his own undoing. And I had only just begun. He'd spent millions acquiring, millions spent on the daughter he once dismissed as talentless. My mother, unable to bear the weight of the truth, collapsed into the nearest chair, her poise shattered, her carefully constructed mask of social perfection cracked. Marcus and Olivia stood frozen, their faces betraying a mix of shock, realization, and deepening horror as the reality of everything they'd mocked, everything they'd dismissed, hit them like a ton of bricks. The failed artist, I said, my voice clear and unwavering, allowing every word to settle into the charged silence. The one with no talent, the disappointment you erased from your family, that's whose art you've been collecting, that's whose work you've been boasting about at every gala and social event, that's who you spent $50 million trying to impress your friends with. Elena stepped forward, her timing impeccable as always. She knew how to amplify the moment. For those wondering, she began, her voice calm and collected. Yes, every piece in the Kensington collection has been authenticated as a genuine MK, or should I say, a genuine Maline Kensington, she added, letting the name hang in the air. The signatures, now revealed under the UV light, have been verified by experts. My father, who had stood in stunned silence, finally found his voice. Maline, he said, his voice cracking with something unrecognizable, a mixture of disbelief and regret. We didn't. No, I interrupted, the bitterness in my tone cutting through the air. That's exactly the point. You never knew me, you never saw me, you were too busy guarding the family name to recognize talent, unless it came with someone else's label attached to it. I motioned toward the large painting that stood behind me, the one I had just unveiled. The piece was massive, a young woman, back turned, walking away from a crowd of shadowy figures, her form dissolving into a constellation of bright stars against the suffocating darkness. This piece is called Liberation, I declared to the crowd, my voice ringing with finality, and it's not for sale, it's a gift, to the Kensington Foundation's new art wing, along with every single piece in this collection. I turned to face my father directly, the words slipping from my lips with a finality that resonated with everything I had once been denied. After all, family is all about legacy, isn't it? The irony was exquisite. Their new art wing, designed to flaunt their wealth and perceived sophistication, would now forever hold the story of how they failed to recognize the artist within their own blood. As the flashes of cameras swirled around me and reporters scrambled to capture every moment, I saw my family retreat to the farthest corner of the room. Their world, built on illusion, had just crumbled. The whispers had already begun. The Kensingtons couldn't even recognize their own daughter's genius. They rejected her, and then spent a fortune collecting her work. Elena appeared at my side, beaming. Bernie's ready for the interviews. Every major art publication in the world is lining up to talk to you. I took one final glance at my family, my father's defeated posture, my mother's silent tears, my siblings' embarrassed silence, and I didn't feel a rush of triumph. Instead, I felt something far more liberating, release. For so long, their opinions had bound me, chained me to their expectations and their contempt, but now, I was free. My success hadn't come despite their rejection, it had come because of it. Every cruel word, every mockery, every sneer. They had all fed into my art, transformed my pain into something beautiful, and far more valuable than they had ever imagined. Yes, I said, turning my back on them and stepping toward the future, I'm ready to tell my story. In the years that followed, the revelation of MK's true identity became legendary within the art world. My work, now proudly signed as Maline Kensington, commanded astronomical prices. The Kensington Foundation's art wing, meant to showcase the family's refined taste, became a major tourist attraction, but not for the reasons they'd intended. People didn't come to see the art as a symbol of their wealth. They came because it told the story of betrayal, of success born from rejection. My father never spoke to me again. His pride couldn't bear the shame. My mother tried once, awkwardly suggesting we put the past behind us. I declined without hesitation. Marcus and Olivia, ever opportunistic, sent messages through Elena, likely hoping to cash in on my success, but I kept my distance. I no longer needed their approval. My art spoke for me now, and its voice was louder, stronger, and far more truthful than any mocking words they had ever thrown at me. Sometimes, as I stand in my studio late at night, painting under the soft hum of the lights, I think about that young woman, the one who left everything behind, the one they called a failure. She wasn't a failure. She was just preparing for her masterpiece.